There's football, and then there's SEC football. What's going on, everybody? This is SEC Weekly, your one-stop shop for all things SEC football. I'm your host, Matt DeRozier, joined by two of the best in the business, Alex Dunlap and Cody Carpentier. Spring practices, they are everywhere, but not only that, this weekend, boys, we have some spring games. Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi State all have their big spring scrimmage. Cody, any thoughts on these teams that are kicking it off this Saturday?
I think Alabama, number one. There's some stuff that came out this last week, specifically surrounding the quarterback position, and some people around the Alabama kind of situation saying that Russell's been, the most impressive. He's special. Was one thing that was said last weekend at their scrimmage. Was Austin Mack threw 2 interceptions. Both quarterbacks struggled with blitz pickup and dealing with pressure on the defense. Interesting nugget. Alabama went and got left guard Nick Brooks from Texas in the transfer portal this last year, a guy that struggled mightily with Florida. He was moved to the backup spot at left guard. He was the starting left guard the week before during all of the scrimmage work and practices. He was replaced by Ethan Fields, who was also a transfer that came in. So
my jaw hit the floor whenever I heard that Alabama was going to be starting Nick Brooks. I mean, You just said he struggled mightily versus Florida. He struggled mightily versus everybody, dude. he was a guy who last season allowed either a sack, a quarterback pressure, a quarterback hit, a run stuff, a TFL, or committed a penalty once every 5.87 snaps for the Texas Longhorns. I mean, he could be good eventually. He's a huge guy. He's got really good traits. But I was just like, dude, they could not have watched the film from last season and brought this guy in to start. So I'm not surprised at all by that.
That was, I think, the biggest takeaway was the quarterbacks, though. Obviously, moving in there. Ethan Fields, a third-year player out of Ole Miss, so he came over also from within the conference to take over on the offensive line and kind of assist in Alabama's kind of reboot there. Another update was an interesting nugget that came from LSU with quarterback Sam Leavitt, who has been recovering from a Liz Frank injury, and he posted a cryptic Instagram story with his foot. He was sitting in the back seat of a Suburban. His leg is vouched up on the center console, and he's got his foot wrapped up, and it was like minor setback, major comeback, something along these lines. One of those cryptic posts. And so he went in and actually had a screw removed from his foot. No real clarity on like if this was like a new tweak or if this was just.
I thought that's part of the process. You got to get the screw removed eventually, right?
Correct, but again, why would you say minor setback, major comeback? And when Lane Kiffin was asked about it, he said, look at the previous place I was at. That guy didn't get there until the summer. We were just fine. They said that Sam Leavitt had surgery yesterday and will likely miss the rest of the spring. That's how it was reported. So, again, it's not really a surgery when you're getting a screw removed. It's more of that's just a checkup situation as someone that's literally married to a surgeon. But, yeah, it's interesting the way it was phrased.
It's technically a surgery if they cut into your body, right? If you cut into your body, isn't that considered surgery?
Sure, but if it's already an open wound, then it's not really just.
You say you're married to a doctor, and so you know this stuff, and now you're like, well, if it's an open wound, well, it's just like
a procedure. Like it's not a surgery. If you already performed the surgery and all you're doing is removing the screw, like it's. Okay. But anyway, it's interesting.
I'm not a surgeon. I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
He's like, my wife's a surgeon.
I think it's most interesting how all these things, especially in college, are like presented to the media and presented to the public. It's like this happened, but no one's going to say like what actually happened. It's just like, yeah, he's out for the spring. He had surgery, instead of just saying like, this was part of the process. We expected this. This is the cleanup. This is removal of a screw. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's just all these hypotheticals and people pontificating on what potentially might have happened. But anyway, he's not going to practice, obviously, the rest of the spring. He hasn't. He's just kind of he's been out there at practice, but hasn't been doing anything. Another interesting nugget on the Tennessee front, they went and had a big splash in the transfer portal this year with Chaz Coleman. And Chaz Coleman, the edge rusher from Penn State, has had trouble let's just say, feeling at home at Tennessee. He got reportedly paid $3.5 million, but he's been a little homesick, and so he's had some family members move down to Tennessee with him. There's an interesting quote that came from an insider from A to Z Sports following the Tennessee Volunteers that said Tennessee doesn't want to kick him off the team, but they're not happy.
They don't want to kick him off the team.
Yeah, I don't really know if there's smoke, if there's fire, but this is a high-end, edge rusher, especially in the transfer portal this last year, coming from Penn State. I know Texas was
high-end prospect with a lot of potential, but not
potential.
Yeah,
one sack last year, no production rate.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, dude, he
$3 million is $3 million.
He looks like $1 million. I mean, like,
I think if you asked anybody around there, they would say he's a high-end player. Like, that's why they went on and got him. But I get what you're saying. Nonetheless, $3.5 million, I just thought was a shocking, a little bit number. But I do remember a lot of teams being in on him as he was one of the crown jewels at the edge position in the portal. The last nugget is a team that's got their game this week, and you mentioned before, John Summerall, the head coach of Florida, who's made a couple of quotes this spring so far about this Florida football team, was asked about the depth of this Florida team so far, and this was what he said, in quote, "I don't feel really good. In full disclosure, I'm very uncomfortable with the depth of how competitive we are. In this league, you better be. We're not there yet at all. It's a little uneasy for me, so we need to challenge some guys to go play football." So more kind of, I don't want to say coach speak, but more just kind of like talking to your team through the media and also letting people know that, hey, like, as much as these wide receivers look kind of sick and they're getting a lot of conversation on like Josh Pate's show and we've talked about them, it's the whole team maybe isn't quite where Summerall obviously wants it to be in 5 months.
Well, it's certainly a, it's I think a guy like Summerall's smart, dude. He's a good coach. He wants to be there for the long term, and I think for one, he seems like a no nonsense guy. For one, right? He's kind of telling it like it is. Also, there's the thing like Cody mentioned. These coaches they talk to their teams through the media to a certain degree. And the third thing is it's a good. They got a spring game coming up and they got a season coming up, and like saying this stuff like this in a way, it's a little bit of also managing expectations for fans and stakeholders and letting them know it's like, well, I kind of said from the beginning, this was, it's a good way for him to point back and say, I told you guys from the very beginning that this was going to take a little while. Like it wasn't like we came in here and it was a new build ready for move in, it's we got some fixer upper stuff to do. Like I was hired, but I was like, it's the reason why you fire the old guy, so you can understand, you can understand it from him. Whereas when you listen to, like, for example, when you listen to Coach Steve Sarkisian, it's like, it isn't like he's going to be on the hot seat if he doesn't, go far in the playoffs this year at Texas, but the expectation that he's put out there is kind of put a lot of burden on himself, saying we have all the depth. We have the high-end talent. We're all in. We're ready to go. So it's like, if he doesn't accomplish all those things this year, it's like the fans will be like, well, what about all this 1 in a million talk? Like, what, you know what I mean? So I can definitely understand it from Summerall. Speaking of those, so you hit on Tennessee, you hit on Alabama, you hit on Florida. They're all having their spring games this week. A couple guys who in those games who I'd be interested to see, but I'm not sure about their availability. One, I guess Dallas Wilson, he's back at practice, but I'm not sure if he's limited. Have you heard much at all about him and his availability and whether I'm just interested to see if he's going to play. I've just heard he's been back out at practice to some degree. And it looks like for Alabama, Xavier Crowell, or I guess who they call I guess we're going to call him EJ Crowell now. Okay. That's what they all call him.
Yep.
He hasn't been practicing, so we're not going to see him in that one. The freshman stud running back who we all have really high hopes for. Do y'all want to go through these and give your do you think for any of these where we have quarterback battles with Tennessee, that's the freshman Faison Brandon and what is it McIntyre? Was it
at Kentucky?
No.
Well, at Tennessee, it's
George McIntyre,
Yeah,
the quarterback of
yes.
Tennessee.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Okay, George McIntyre, and then of course we know at Alabama it's Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, and then at Florida it's Aaron Philo and redshirt freshman Trammell Jones. Do you guys? Is it chalk to say that we're not going to get an answer coming out of spring for any of these?
I
don't know if we get
into fall camp.
No, I don't know if we get the answer, but I think this is a chance for some of these QB battles, especially for someone to get the leg up, get someone to look a little bit better. Because we've been doing the show now for a few weeks, and it doesn't feel like these QB battles really have started to settle. It seems like we're seeing a lot of jockeying for who's going to be the starter at basically 3 of these 4 teams that are playing this weekend.
I just don't think I don't think you get an answer because it's like we thought it was kind of crazy that what Drinkwitz did in Missouri by just butting it up so soon, and like I'd kind of thought to myself, well, that's because there's no more spring transfer portal, and there's like if your guy's going to be your guy, go ahead and announce it. It isn't like the other guy can transfer out at this point. But I do think that there's something to be said for, letting the battle continue on. I think eventually, man, I think that just based on what people are reporting on the Tennessee side, it feels like Brandon's probably going to win that job. Just when they talk about,
you think so?
Yeah, just like when they talk about how he's just got special stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think the same with. I think Keelan Russell's going to win the Alabama job. And maybe that's just me being from Texas and knowing what a go he was in Texas high school football. He's like a kingmaker. And then
go ahead, Cody. Go.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna move on to the Florida one.
Yeah, in Florida, I think it's gonna be Philo. Because I just think when you bring in an offensive coordinator and that offensive coordinator brings in the quarterback from his system, that guy's gonna start.
Yeah, I'm with you on Philo. I think he's the runaway of these 3. I think he's the easy one. I think he's going to probably win the Florida job. He could win it this weekend, but based on the things that Summerall has said, I don't know if he's going to be willing to give that job in April. So I think that's probably going to come down to August. As far as Alabama goes, everything kind of the writing on the wall is definitely for Keelan Russell, but Austin Mack has waited his time. And I wonder if that's not a situation like we've seen happen in Alabama in the past under a different regime, but where Austin Mack gets the reins and then it potentially, something happens. It gets flip-flopped, it's a bad game, whatever. I think that's going to be a thing that comes down to week 1, comes down to the wire. I believe in Keelan Russell, but it doesn't always matter what I think or what I see and what I believe. It comes down to, sometimes that kid's done the right things behind the walls. And then the Tennessee one, well, we all know Faison Brandon's hyper-talented quarterback. George McIntyre, I think with an extra year in that program, might be just enough to beat him out. So I'm going to go McIntyre, I'm going to go Mac, and I'm going to go Philo.
Okay.
For week 1 starters.
Doesn't it seem, though, like that Bama's going to be throwing Mac to the Wolves? We just talked about some offensive line woes, no running game. The guy that we like might not even be fully ready. He's at least going to be a little behind based on the injuries of the spring.
Crowell will be fine, I think.
Crowell is also a reclassification.
Well, but like Richie Wesley at Texas is a reclassification, and that guy's just coming in and just like coming.
Yeah, but the expectation for Richie Wesley isn't to come in and be the starter and take 200 touches in that bat. And like
I think he's right, but he's also not having to play behind guys like Lance Jackson and Colin Simmons. So but
you're right. But again, I get what you're saying, but it's still that's a tough spot to the running back at Alabama at 17 years old is a big.
All right. Well, speaking of Xavier Crowell or EJ Crowell, whatever they're calling him now, I pulled up this article. It's another article from ESPN by this dude Billy Tucker. He put it out yesterday, where it's the top newcomers for every SEC team and what coaches and GMs are saying about them. And for Alabama, the one he listed was Xavier Crowell. And he just talks about how the run game struggled last year. We've talked about it. Everybody's talked about it, right? Jam Miller's gone, but he wasn't any good anyway. They were 125th nationally. I knew they were bad. I didn't know that they were that bad. But Crowell was a top. Where did you have him ranked, Cody?
I think 3.
Okay, so like a top 3 to 5 type of runner in the 2026 class. From what they're saying is that Kalen DeBoer said EJ's come in and done nothing but grind. His work day in on improving himself, yada yada yada. We're excited to watch his game continue to grow. He can make an impact for us in multiple areas of the game this fall, but he's banged up and he hasn't been practicing in the spring. So as far as his grind, I guess it's in the weight room or, in the running back room or anything else. But any thoughts about Crowell that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's an opportunity for him in that backfield. We touched on Daniel Hill last week about this maniacal 800-pound squat thing. Now that translating to him being a good running back is a whole different conversation. And he was also part of that backfield last year. I think the name in that backfield that I'm kind of most excited to see kind of what he is AK Deer. And so that's kind of the one that I expect to be part of that thing. I don't think it's going to be one dude, whether it's Daniel Hill or AK Deer or Xavier Crowell.
Ever in college or these days, right? It's really rare to have a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you have a super talent, like if Crowell was to prove, that he was worth his name and salt, like that would be a guy that you would expect to potentially take it on. Like he's 210, 215 pounds. And, he get, maybe next year at that point, he could be a guy you'd look at, all right, that guy's going to get 250 touches. But this year, I think I would be more reserved on the Crowell side. I think there are a lot more work needs to be done on this offensive line. We talked earlier about Fields taking over for Brooks at left guard. There's so much movement on that interior left guard, center, right guard that I think needs to be fulfilled. And that's also not talking about the fact that Caden Proctor's gone at left tackle. So you got a new left tackle walking around in there. You also lost your right tackle, William Formby, to A&M. Michael Carroll was moved from guard to right tackle. He's more naturally a guard. So it's a lot of movement on the offensive line to begin with. So expectations for Crowell to me are dampered a little bit, especially with him being banged up.
For Arkansas Razorbacks, so Mike Washington, of course, moves on to the NFL and actually has had one of the most outrageous pre-draft processes with the weighing in at 228, running a 4.3 340. Thought of as if not the running back 2 in this class, the running back 3 in this class, which was even higher than I had originally thought of him, as a guy that was a giant fan of Mike Washington coming out, as Cody and Maddie can attest to. They're going to be replacing him probably with the committee, but they've listed here as the running back Sutton Smith, who transferred in from Memphis, followed Ryan Silverfield and the offensive coordinator Tim Crampsey from Memphis. I think he was their leading rusher there. Whenever we were talking about our first glimpse of Arkansas spring football, it certainly appeared to me that Sutton Smith was the lead guy. And that was something that, Cody, you were a little bit surprised at the time, but it looks like through spring practice, he's really asserted himself there. Not a giant guy.
Smaller guy, yeah.
Not a giant guy, but did catch. I don't have his receiving
20
number.
balls last year.
Yeah, so he's not one of these Tony Pollard or Antonio Gibson style Memphis running backs.
Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, but he can catch, and certainly you've seen that in practice so far. Any thoughts from you guys on Sutton Smith?
Sutton Smith, I mean, they're calling him and Braylon Russell the Thunder and Lightning, which is obviously the biggest cliche in any type of backfield. You have a big guy and a little guy. But it does seem like that's what the Arkansas Razorback offense will kind of go through, is the fact that they got a big-bodied running back, and they're going to move up with Sutton. He split carries last year, though, with DeRozier's, right? My cousin, Greg DeRozier's down there in Memphis. So we look pretty similar. I will say, if you put our picture up, we would very – no, but anyway. They split back then. So I don't know what his ceiling is, Sutton's ceiling, but as a change of pace type of kid, someone that comes into that Razorback offense to provide a ton. The numbers were pretty good in terms of the totality of it, but I would have liked to see a little bit more receptions. If he's going to be your satellite guy, 20 receptions is kind of like the low number of that threshold. If it was, mid high 30s, you'd be like, all right, well, now we know he has a little bit more receiving chops than probably most guys, that he's going to be playing with or competing against. But it doesn't seem, I don't know what his ceiling is, but seems like he's getting a lot of buzz out of camp, which, sometimes this early can mean a lot or it can mean very little. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on, obviously, throughout the summer.
His usage certainly stood out to me in the clips of practice that I saw from those guys. For Auburn, we don't need to spend much time on this. Obviously, anybody knows it's Byron Brown, the quarterback that came over from USF with Golish. Do you guys have any? I mean, we've already discussed him a lot.
Chicken wing.
Cam Newton was on campus last week working out with him.
Was he?
Yep. So
when Cam Newton works out, does he wear the hats? Does he wear the goofy apparel? He's just throwing basketball shorts.
Did he give him a bunch of money? I heard Alvin Kamara is gonna. I think he's going to the spring game for Tennessee tomorrow. Going to be recognized for giving us like a giant philanthropic contribution.
Is he gonna give away his retirement or what?
I don't know. I don't know. I wonder if Cam Newton's going to do something similar for
Cam Newton was. There's a clip out there. You guys can go find it of Cam Newton when he's at Auburn working out, I think with Byron Brown and another quarterback. And he basically was like, he knew he was on camera and he's like, you want all this money, go win some games, go get some talent, go do. And he was just like Cam Newton about it. But yeah, I don't know. It sounds like he might give a little bit, but only if they win games and want to go get some real talent, which I think Byron Brown qualifies for.
For the next one up here for the Florida Gators, they have listed Eric Singleton Jr., who transferred in from Auburn, originally from Georgia Tech, goes to Auburn. Now he goes to Florida. I think that's probably reasonable to think about, but I would say it would have been probably Philo if he would have won that quarterback job by now, and there wasn't a competition still underway.
Singleton's got a lot of speed, but it hasn't really translated to a whole lot of production. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player though. He's one. Yeah. Well, this is interesting. Like speaking of Georgia Tech, so for Georgia, the player they have listed here is Isaiah Canyon that came from Georgia Tech. And to be honest, man, this wasn't somebody who I had didn't really burst up. For one, I don't watch many, as many ACC games as I watch SEC games, but Canyon wasn't somebody that really broke onto my radar. I kept my notebook on from any of the, just the stupid TV scouting that I do during the year when I write down guys that flash just when I'm watching the TV broadcast games. Didn't know much about Canyon. So you kind of look him up. I know it's a Georgia Tech offense or whatever, but it, didn't have ridiculous numbers. Looks like he had 33 receptions, 480, and 4 touchdowns last year at Georgia Tech. But they're saying that he's going to immediately compete for a starting role there at Georgia. Cody, are we finally going to get some production here from one of these Georgia wide receivers?
But I don't think it's him. I don't think he's going to be the one that does it. My bet on the guy that breaks the 23-year streak of not having a 1,000-yard receiver for Georgia is Taylon Taylor, redshirt freshman, number 11. Canyon's going to come in there. He's a big dude, but I think he's going to replace
Matt Collins.
That Noah Thomas role, who they brought in from Texas A&M last year and didn't really use that much. So I don't think that that's really what this offense and this program generally utilizes, right? It's usually that Ladd McConkey type of a role that we've seen utilized. The Brock Bowers, like these guys in the inside and the slot, and Lawson Lucky, and London Humphreys could be interesting. They got him from Vanderbilt 2 years ago. He hasn't done a damn thing since, but I think Taylon Taylor is more of a watch for me than Isaiah Canyon.
For Kentucky, of course, they have Kenny Minchie, the Notre Dame transfer. Do you have thoughts on this? They're saying that, I mean, it looks like he's locked in. Will Stein apparently loves him. That he says that that he's just excellent command. it's just he doesn't look like somebody that's just gotten here. It's just a few months into the job. To me, it's like, what else are you going to say if you're the coach that's kind of putting your stock in this guy for your first season at a place like Kentucky?
And that became a very sought after transfer position, was Kentucky's quarterback after Will Stein took over the gig, right? So, coming from Oregon, after all the quarterbacks he's developed, there's high expectations for whoever were to take that jersey and put it on was going to have to be someone with a lot of talent. And now he seemed like he got one of his highest regarded transfer guys in Kenny McKinchey. So I don't see why he wouldn't get the role, run with it, and see how good he could be. He was, very talented kid at Notre Dame. Just got beat up by CJ Carr.
I don't think that there's one all 22 spring game I'd rather see if we can get hands on it than Kentucky's with Minchie, because I just don't know what to expect. We've heard positive things from Notre Dame's practices and their back end and the competition between him and Carr, but seeing it with some of the notes we've seen about some of these receivers at Kentucky, like if we could get hands on that, we'll see what we can do. But I would love to watch some Kentucky all 22.
Are we going to get all 22 from this?
I hope. I don't know. I think our source is pretty.
We can try.
I think our source is pretty strong, so I'm going to try to. But
let's get the LSU. It's Sam Leavitt, but dude, if it were me making this, I guess I would have to say Leavitt. But God, they got a bunch of newcomers. In the transfer.
How about this potential top 10 offensive lineman?
Yeah. What about Jordan Seaton? Or what about like Lamar Brown and stuff too? Even like the true
freshmen. Yeah.
I just a bunch of interesting new faces there. Mississippi State. This one was interesting to me. It's a safety, Braylon Womack from the 2026 class. Did you watch Braylon Womack, Cody?
I don't think I graded him out. No.
Well, anyway, they're saying that he is just a versatile safety that can also play nickel. Looks like he's kind of like the highest rated kind of player in their class, and it looks like he's going to start. So
yeah, I think he was committed to Auburn for the longest time, and then he flipped to Mississippi State at like the last hour. This
goes to show how hard it is to keep up these days. But for the Missouri Tigers, it was it's the wide receiver Caden Lee, who I had totally forgotten transferred from Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. But they're saying that we all know that Kevin Coleman was at Mississippi State for 1 year, right? And then he went
then Louisville, then Missouri.
Is that how it went?
Or Louisville, Missouri.
I think it was Louisville, Missouri State, Missouri. Regardless, Kevin Coleman, really good player. He's gone now. Caden Lee steps in. Looks like he's probably going to be the number one wide receiver there for Austin Simmons. And of course, we know Austin Simmons. He has the connection there from his time at Ole Miss. So I think that's a good one. I do think though that why did they not make Austin Simmons? They just didn't want to make it all quarterbacks for this list, I guess.
Right. There was only a couple of low-hanging fruit they wanted to put in this list.
Yeah. Okay. For the next one, Oklahoma Sooners. Cody, your thoughts on their top newcomer being Parker Livingston, the Texas transfer.
Interesting.
The guy that would have been the number 4 or 5 wide receiver for Texas this year.
Yeah, I think the bigger takeaway is like if you just look at what Oklahoma did this year in the transfer portal, it's like they didn't really have a lot of big splashes. So Parker Livingston and Trell Harris are kind of the two big, and they're both at wide receiver. And taking Parker Livingston from Texas is definitely the one that's going to definitely get more clicks and bites. And none of these other names on the transfer portal list for Oklahoma really kind of jump out at you. So, yeah, 6'4", 200-pound wide receiver. It's got some stretch and should bring a different dynamic to this Oklahoma team. I guess now that I'm talking myself through it, they didn't really add a lot of. You could have probably went running back, I guess, potentially with the freshman, but yeah, not a lot of spice from the Oklahoma additions this offseason.
For Ole Miss, they listed the edge, Jonathan Maldonado, who transferred in from Nevada, who I'll just admit to you guys, I don't know anything about, but he's just a guy for me. I'm going to add him to the list. They're saying that he's going to start opposite Sunter and Perkins. And they say that, it's like they're talking about him like the quote is, Jonathan's been outstanding addition to our program and buying everything we look for. He's long, lean, highly versatile pass rusher with an advanced skill set. He plays with exceptional balance and body control, uses his hands at a high level, brings a deep arsenal of moves to consistently win off the edge, yada, yada, yada. Disrupts in both the run and the pass situation. Relentless drive for greatness. So I guess we need to kind of be keeping our eyes on Jonathan Maldonado, unless you guys know anything about Nevada Wolfpack football from last season.
I will say they should have put the word lean in bold or capitalized it. 6'6", 230 pounds. He's a little light there, a little skinny guy, a little for that. But he is going to wear number 9, which has had a little bit of history in the program for edge rushers. That was Princely. I'm not going to say his name right. You guys heard me say Munchamps 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to say that right. But Princely's number. So they do give that number as a pretty highly regarded edge guy. So.
All right.
I see a comment from a guy. I don't know anything about Maldonado other than the fact that he's put on a lot of weight in the last 2 years. But a guy that's in the draft space, an analyst in the draft space, said this is a tweet. So I'm gonna take notice of it because you'll understand why. He says we're all going to talk about Colin Simmons and Dylan Stewart as the freakish athletic pass rushers in the 2027 draft class, but keep an eye on Ole Miss edge Jonathan Maldonado, insane athlete for his frame and room to fill out, who started at Nevada last season. So that's enough for me to write his name down.
There you go. For South Carolina, it's Jacarius Peak, the offensive lineman that they got from NC State. And they arguably, I guess until Seton got into the transfer portal, arguably the top prize as far as Peak was the number one offensive lineman in the portal for this last session until Jordan Seton got in there.
Well, now the problem is the fact that he might not, he's not playing right now, but he's expected to potentially be back by fall. So obviously it's a big blow that he hasn't been able to participate, but yeah, he should be a plug and play, potential all SEC player.
For Tennessee, they have listed DT Xavier Gilliam, who comes in from Penn State. I guess he's I'm assuming he's following Jim Knowles. But 6'2", 302 pounds. He's a redshirt freshman. They're saying that it looks like he's going to come in and start probably as a 3 technique.
Mm-hmm. Big kid. Help with the run game for sure. For Texas, they have Cam Coleman listed, who of course transferred from Auburn. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't know if you guys have. We've talked a lot.
Not a lot needs to say. Not a lot needs to be said, other than he's a super freak, and everybody should know the name Cam Coleman by now. Of this entire list, that's the one name people should know coming in.
Yep. Here's another name from A&M. It's Isaiah Horton that came in from Alabama, who was good last year. We know that A&M brings back Mario Craver, but they do lose Casey Concepcion. And I guess they also Ashton Bethel Roman comes back.
Yeah.
But Holman Wiggins, the new offensive coordinator there, talked recently about how this offense has been built around wanting a guy who's that big, long-levered, true outside X wide receiver that they thought they were going to have in Noah Thomas. And they feel like Isaiah Horton can fill that role for them. Apparently, the early returns on him have been pretty good out of College Station.
Yeah, the clip's been coming out of practice. He's been featured in a bunch of them. Looking good there. I mean, you mentioned the production at Alabama. Pretty good. 13 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 years for the Crimson Tide. Big kid, 6'4", 210. Should be the boundary guy for him right away.
It's interesting to me that they had him in here. I think that there's some offensive linemen that, they completely rebuilt this offensive line because they lost a lot of them to the draft, that Potentially a Wilkin Formby wasn't on that conversation. Cone Eccles potentially in that conversation, but yeah, I mean, taking a big time wide receiver from Alabama, aka maybe their third option, is always a positive.
Four new linemen, all coming from basically starting roles with SEC programs for the Aggies this year. And then for Vanderbilt, they have listed 2026 quarterback, and program changing recruit was being the highest rated recruit that they've had is Jared Curtis. I guess people are just pegging him to start. I've been pegging him to start. You don't pay the guy, but RIP to your dreams, Cody, for a 2026 Blaze Berlowitz breakout.
I mean, dude, there's still a chance. They're going to pay this kid $1 billion, but
it looks like Whit Muschamp is on the roster at quarterback. Is that Will Muschamp's kid? It's got to be.
Yeah,
he's
the one
name,
that
Maddie?
Yeah, Whit.
I'm going to point to Cody. Muschamp.
He got it.
Maddie, that's the show. Get us out of here, brother.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for all tuning in. SEC Weekly, your one-stop shop each and every week for all things SEC football. Enjoy those spring games this weekend. We'll see you next week. Peace.